So, hello APUSH. For this coming week, I've decided to do some review stuff, some short answer stuff, and provide you some context. Of course, the stuff I gave you last week, feel free to keep doing that. Send me anything you might want to work on. For this week, what we're going to do, I'm going to review Period 1, Early Colonial, on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to send you stuff on those days about Period 2, the rest of the colonial period. And then Period 3 on Thursday, Friday, which is basically the Revolution, Early Republic period. So I'll have some context every day, major review points, and also some practice questions you can look at. So let's get going with Period 1. All right. So what we're going to do in this is I'm going to give you some context, some themes, and then a short answer prompt, which I will put on Classroom. But for this one, I'll also lead you through it. So if you want to do it on your own, that's fine. If you want to do it on your own, then watch my demo or whatever you want to do. Okay, so let's talk about this early colonial period. Why do we even have a colonial period? Because what we have here is a map of Europe, not the US or America. Well, that's because the colonial period is inspired by Europe, of course. European powers during the Renaissance were these evolving nation states like England, France, Spain. Those are the big ones there. And evolving nation states want to grow their own power, become even bigger world powers. And there's a lot of competition for economic resources during the 1400s, 1500s, and 1600s for that matter. And there's a desire for trade and to bypass the Ottoman Empire, which is, this guy here, which you probably learned about in 9th grade. And they're expanding, approaching the height of their powers. And Europeans would like to not have to deal with them and get the riches of the East, which is always considered the object in the colonial period, to find a way to India, to China. And what this map shows, it's super confusing, but I just brought it in to bring out that Portugal and Spain are the earliest to conduct this. If you look at Portugal starts by going around the coast of Africa, eventually all the way to India. Portugal will eventually go to the Western Hemisphere as well, to what we call Brazil today. That will become their colonies. And then Spain sort of leaves Portugal to that side of the world and decides to head west with Columbus in 1492, followed by others. So these are the two earliest adopters in this colonial race here. So what happens politically? Well, starting with Columbus in Spain, there are these people called conquistadors. And the two big ones I put on a list of forever dates, which I'm going to put out, are Cortez and Pizarro. You should know one of those, I think. Cortez in 1519 with the Aztecs, I know what we would call Mexico, and Pizarro in 1532 with the Inca, around what we call like Chile today. So that's a big amount of conquest they get done in the 1500s, and we'll come back to that. But the big academic vocab for this early period is the Columbian Exchange, which has many, many effects. You can see this map here, showing foods and other things brought from each hemisphere to the next. That's going to have economic effects, demographic effects, social, cultural effects, you name it. Basically any kind of effect the Columbian Exchange has. So, on a holistic view, Columbian Exchange enriches Europe. All those foods that go to Europe cause a population boom, which is going to help fuel and feed the Industrial Revolution later, which starts in Europe. Real benefit for them, the Columbian Exchange on the whole. And then at the same time, disaster for Western Hemisphere. The demographics here are strikingly tragic. I mean, we're in the middle of a coronavirus here. Wow, the Columbian Exchange reducing the native population by 80 to 90%. That's huge. And a lot of it coming from smallpox and other diseases brought over from Europe. Not intentionally. Europeans don't know they're bringing it. They don't know how to guard against themselves. But the effect is just devastating. So while Europe's population goes up, the Western Hemisphere, the native population goes down. So I like to keep that in mind because we think of colonists coming over to wherever, Virginia or Plymouth, but really over this whole colonial period, the population of the Western Hemisphere goes down because so many of the native peoples die from the Columbian Exchange's disease effects. All right, and then a little quote from Alan Taylor, whose book we read over the summer. A demographic boom for Europe, but a demographic disaster for the Americas. So, with New Spain as well, there's economic changes that happen. New Spain is what Spain names its colonies, although it gets divided into two, as you can see right there, three actually. But major changes for Spain here. Spain pioneers the use of mercantilism, this idea that colonies exist to provide riches for the mother country. It is focused on gathering gold and silver, and the Aztecs and Incas have lots of that, and thus a lot of Spain in the 1500s is based on extracting those resources from the colonies to bring to the mother country and enrich that. And Spain's at the peak of its power by the late 1500s into 1600. They bring back just tons. I think it was 181 tons of gold, 30,000 tons of silver over the course of this colonial period. They enrich themselves very much. Although I will also note there's a failure to diversify either the economy of the mother country or the colonies, since they are so bent on extracting these resources here. So in the long term, it will be a failure economically. But early on, for a good 50, 60, 70 years, Spain is the #1 power by far, pretty much. Politically, of course, there's this giant area, way bigger than the mother country conquered. And early on, it's ruled by the individual conquistadors who take over these lands. By mid-century, that's been replaced by centralized viceroys appointed by the king and the crown. Their control is the strongest in the urban areas like Mexico City or Lima. Less so on the fringes. If you look at where Santa Fe is, New Mexico, there's less control there by the Spaniards. And that's where like Native Americans are going to have the best, not easiest, but the best pushback against Spanish control. Socially, and really this is also still economically as well, the encomiendas, the first social and labor system, where conquistadors would be given an area of land and the natives on that land, and they would try to extract gold and silver and other resources from that land, which is what you see in this picture. It's very exploitative, this system, very cruel, and even the crown will protest against it. So by the late 1500s, encomienda does change, and a lot of it, I want to bring this out, is humanitarian. There are Spanish priests and friars like Bartolome de las Casas, who early on head over to the New World and are appalled by what conquistadors are doing, write home about it, the terrible treatment of Native Americans, and so there is a push to reform some of the abuses of encomienda as a result of this. At the same time, disease, of course, wipes out the encomienda because the Native Americans aren't going to be a labor force if they're not alive. That wasn't flipped, that's just what it is. And African slavery also begins by 1520. And sadly, Las Casas is one of the people who advocates that. It's funny, he saw the humanitarian concerns for Native Americans, but not for Africans. And by the mid-century, Spain has put a strict caste system in place where people born in Spain are at the top, Spaniards who are born in the New World next, and then pretty much everyone below that on some kind of scale. People of mixed race, slaves at the bottom. But it's a very strict system, no economic, no social mobility in New Spain. So this isn't exactly come to the New World and make your fortune and move up or anything like that. You got to be a Spaniard to really be ahead. Okay, so I have a practice prompt now, which is I said earlier, I'm going to put on Classroom if you want to try it yourself. I'm going to have a demo in the next slides here. And just to remind you, the format here is going to be ACE. Well, there we go. For every short answer, and again, I'm betting the AP test is going to be all short answer. I'll have an answer on April 3rd, Friday, I hope. You answer a simple one-sentence answer, which establishes your point. You cite evidence for that. That could be from a quote, could be from a stimulus, could be things out of your own head. And then you expand or explain on that. So let's look here at the first one. This is a sermon by Bartolome de las Casas in 1511. If you want to pause the video, you can read it. And then we'll consider the question as every stimulus question for short answer. They begin part A with asking about perspective. So what's the perspective expressed by the author regarding interactions between Spaniards and Native Americans? Like I said, you can pause the video if you want to just take a shot at yourself. And I'm going to keep going. So for this one, my answer, I would say it is critical. Las Casas is critical of his own people regarding the interactions. That's a simple way to put it. Lots of evidence here. You don't want to overquote a stimulus. In fact, I don't really recommend quoting at all because it just looks like you don't know what you're talking about. But there's so many words in here. Cruel, horrible, oppressed, weary, killing, excessive work. I mean, he's definitely calling out his Spaniards for the treatment, claiming they work them to death just so the Spanish can get gold. And I would extend on that by, what he really wants is them to stop. He wants people to change their ways. And that last line about, are they not men? He wants the Spaniards not to just stop, but recognize that the Indians are people too. All right, moving on. The next part is always a cause one for a stimulus. So what's one event before this stimulus that led to the historical situation? So why do we have a situation where Las Casas is making that sermon? So lots of things you could do. They all boil down to the same ideas. You could say just the fact that there's exploration. That's a big thing that led to it. People wanting resources. The conquest itself is an immediate one. That will all lead you to about the same place. I would cite the exploration. Las Casas is calling him out because Europeans want these eastern riches. They want gold and silver. That's why they've established encomienda. That's why they're working these people to death. And then explaining, of course, they found the Western Hemisphere, and though they didn't find China or India, they still wanted gold and silver. So that desire remained, and they just changed that to the exploitative labor system and encomienda. So really, that's what led to Las Casas. If there wasn't this desire, this situation where they're extracting resources, Las Casas wouldn't be making a speech. And then lastly, you want to look at an outcome or an effect. So Las Casas does this sermon. There's this historical situation of encomienda and Las Casas protesting it. What results from that situation? So you could look at the reforms, the end of encomienda. You could look at African slavery. Any of those would do for an answer. So you can expand on them any way you want. Friars like Las Casas got a sympathetic response when they wrote back. They advocated for the use of African slavery. You could certainly bring that in. This is like an ironic point here. You could bring up that encomienda does die down, does end. Of course, the king still wants the gold. They don't give up wanting gold and silver just by ending encomienda in this particular practice. So that's maybe where you can bring in African slavery. So that is my quick demo. And send me along what you answered if you had something different. I always think there's more than one way to do these. So if you've got another thought and you're wondering how you did, let me know. And I will get back to you. I will post this on Classroom, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day, or as great as you can have in the middle of a crazy situation here, folks. Take care. Stay safe.